When I look back on the PlayStation launch, one of the things that I remember is the strong third-party relationships that Sony had built. I was seeing games from Namco, from Capcom, from Acclaim, inevitably from Konami, and then Square would join in the fun. So we had all kinds of games from companies that we were familiar with from the 16-bit era, and they were in Sony's corner. So that was great. We were playing sometimes sequels to games that we had played earlier, or new games from companies that we trusted. Something that we didn't expect, however, is that Sony's first-party publishing arm, Sony Computer Entertainment, would surprise us with some really strong original games. A couple of those came from a company called SingleTrac. One of those that's probably the most successful is Twisted Metal, a game that released in 1995 and developed by a gentleman by the name of David Jaffe, whose name you've probably heard of before. Very sharp guy, can be outspoken, but I think that that's a positive thing. He has his own opinions and he sticks to them. Very creative. He and his team seem to have a lot of fun with this particular game. And if you haven't played it before, it is car combat. It is the game that really got the car combat genre going. You play as one of several different characters who are driving several different vehicles with the goal of winning these Twisted Metal challenges and gaining the favor of Calypso, who basically rules the world at this point and can grant you any particular wish that you want, but you have to kill everyone else off first in this particular competition. It's fun to play solo, much more fun to play multiplayer, and is still fun to revisit today. As I mentioned, I tend to prefer Twisted Metal 2 just a little bit, as it's a sequel and it tends to clean up some of the things that the original probably could have done better. But nevertheless, this is a strong game to have in your collection. You can see by the teen logo there, it wasn't always crazy over the top, but it was definitely walking on the wild side just a little bit. That wasn't SingleTrac's only release in 1995. Here's Warhawk, a game that's completely different from Twisted Metal. This is a game that's more of a flight combat / shooter kind of game that's also blessed with some of the corniest, funniest, but at the time, very cool looking full motion video sequences, original full motion video sequences that we had seen. This game blew me away when it came out. I had to get this as soon as I possibly could because it looked great for the time. There were some cool lighting effects, and it was a shooter. It was more action-oriented and something that I was more familiar with than the car combat genre. So I was big into this when it came out. Although, if I'm being completely real with you, I was never that great at it. I think I got maybe to like the third level of the game, and that was as far as I ever got. So when we look at these two games, and I'll try and hold this up so it's the right way for the camera. When we look at these two games, that's a great start for SingleTrac Entertainment. And you'd think that they'd stick around with Sony because it was a pretty good partnership. But as usual, when we think that things are going to work out and we just kind of assume that things are going to be status quo, they aren't. SingleTrac and Sony divorced. SingleTrac went their own way. A couple of the games were picked up by GT Interactive, including this guy right here. This is Rogue Trip Vacation 2012, which is very weird to say because 2012 was already almost 10 years ago, and this game came out, I believe, in 1998. So that was like, 14 years in the future? And now it's almost 10 years in the past. It's very weird to say. Anyway, this game is very similar to Twisted Metal and has a little bit of a Crazy Taxi vibe to it in that you're basically operating as a taxi service, picking up passengers and delivering them places. But the catch is, unlike Crazy Taxi, in this particular game, you are always under fire from other people in a very Twisted Metal way. And if we're being completely fair, I believe this game came out just a little bit before Crazy Taxi did. I'm trying to remember. Maybe you guys can correct me in the comments. But that was the split. That was the dissolving of the relationship between Sony and SingleTrac, which is very unfortunate. So the Twisted Metal series reverted from SingleTrac to 989 Studios, who developed Twisted Metal 3 and 4 and Small Brawl, games that were lesser received by fans and by critics alike. So we kind of thought at that point that things would just remain. We didn't know what was going to go on with SingleTrac after they had left Sony. The future of Twisted Metal was up in the air, and oh, by the way, there's a brand new video game console coming out called the PlayStation 2. What would Sony do with that? Would we see another brand new Twisted Metal game? The answer, of course, was yes, but what took us by surprise is the company that helmed the game. by the name of Incognito Incorporation, or Incog, we got Twisted Metal Black. This is the greatest hits version because it comes with some content from Twisted Metal Black Online as well. So you get that as part of the package here. This game takes Twisted Metal and really turns it on its head. Now you can see that it has a mature rating to it with some very adult themes, some very creepy vibes in the game while maintaining that same Twisted Metal excitement. And it runs so much better on a PlayStation 2 with 60 frames per second animation and better looking visuals. That really just adds to the experience. And the game is still a lot of fun to revisit today, even though the game, I believe, is now going to be 20 years old this year, I think. That's kind of crazy to say, but it's the truth. So Incog was back in the game. They were working with Sony again. Twisted Metal was revived. But what else would Incog do? What would be Incog's Warhawk for the PlayStation 2? And the answer, as we're now finally 6 minutes into the video and the history lesson is over, is a title called Downhill Domination. It's much different than Twisted Metal, just like Warhawk was, but this isn't a shooter, oh no. As you can see by the image on the front of the game case, this is a downhill biking game. So it has a little bit of Tony Hawkness to it where you can pull off some tricks. There are some crazy looking set pieces in the game which just have to be seen to be believed. There's also a little bit of road rash action in here, and it's all running in 60 frames per second animation. It looks fantastic. It is awesome to play, and I'm very happy to finally have a complete version of this, or at least it's going to be complete once I open this up. This is a sealed copy of the game. It does happen to be a promo version of the game. That's why you see the hole drilled down at the bottom here to show that it was a promo version and not a retail version of the game. So when we look at the back of the case, wicked terrain, 100-foot drops, and broken bones. Almost feels like a Jackass sketch, but it is definitely downhill mountain biking. As we read the rest of it, it's pulsing through your veins, the addiction to living on the edge and the desire to win the downhill mountain bike championships. Nothing will keep you from owning this mountain and your competition. Not even a few broken bones. Super style and combo for over 30 insane aerial tricks for bonus points and cash. Extremist combat system, you can punch, hip check, throw homing water bottles and more at your competition. You can blitz through 27 courses across 9 mountains riddled with interactive elements, changing weather, rock slides, hikers, SUVs, and more. It was the first downhill biking game for the PlayStation 2. You can select from 14 distinct riders, including 5 real-world professional riders, so again, bridging the gap between fantasy and reality there. You can upgrade your bike with the latest racing parts and win sponsorships from real-world manufacturers. And it includes mountain cross, technical DH, and free ride courses. And again, you can see the Incog Inc. logo there. It also has Dolby Digital Pro Logic 2, which is kind of cool. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to open this up and I'm going to talk about it. And again, I've been very excited about this. I've had this disc only for a while. And if I'm being completely honest, I think I've played it like once since I got that disc-only version. I did buy this brand new when it had come out, and I believe, and try to check in the date, this was 2003. So I did buy it not too long after it came out because it was an Incog game and it was being talked up in video game magazines. But I was not prepared for how cool the game was. And now I get to start playing it again, and I have it complete. I can put it with my collection. So got my trusty scissors here. Let's go ahead and get this guy open and start talking about Downhill Domination. So let's get that open. And I'm going to get the plastic off of there. Oh yeah. There we go. Slide the plastic off just like that. There we go. And we will take the ID seal off the top there. And we'll take a look at what's on the inside. There was another game from Incog, by the way, and I didn't grab it for this particular Unsealed episode. There's an Incog game called War of the Monsters, which is like a fighting game with monsters, basically. It feels kind of like King of the Monsters from SNK, but it's definitely a different game. And that's another one you can look at. Any of the Incog games for the PS2, definitely worth owning in your collection. When we open up the case... Oh, please be... Oh, good. Okay, so when we open up the case, I'm just going to turn the disc around so you can see. That's what the disc looks like. We have a fold-out from Sony Computer Interactive. And we have the instruction manual. The disc is a DVD-ROM, so if you have a PlayStation 2 that reads most discs, that one should be just fine. And we've gone over these before. This is the PlayStation Underground application. So you could get mailings and things from Sony. Of course, PlayStation Underground as a demo disc collection had moved to the official PlayStation magazine at that point, but you could still get some free demo discs and other things from Sony just by being on their mailing list by sending these back in the mail. And when we open up the case and we take the instruction manual out, the instruction manual is hefty. The instruction manual is pretty thick, as you can see right there. It is not thin. And even on the back of the manual, unlike other manuals that have advertisements in the back, this is showing you, this is a handy-dandy list of all the tricks that you can do in the game. And a lot of them are driven by the trigger buttons, as you can see. It feels a little bit like NBA Street in that aspect, where by holding down some of the trick buttons in sequence, not tricks, but dunks, I'm sorry, executing dunks in NBA Street, and you can execute tricks using variations of the trigger buttons here in Downhill Domination. The manual is in color, which is awesome. When we take a look at the manual, and we'll just open it up to the intro here, you can see some of the color photos. It has an intro sequence talking about conquering the mountain. Rocketing down a 10,000-foot mountain, a fearless squad of cycling's biggest maniacs erupts from the woods at 75 miles an hour, and you are one of them. You dodge hikers, wildlife, and other hazards on the mountain, but a jagged boulder appears out of nowhere. You skid headfirst into it and eat it big time. You cringe at the pain, but shake it off as you experienced worse. You hop onto your bike and blast downhill to catch the pack. You've got a championship to win and a few thousand more feet to descend. Just such a cool setting for this game. And I'm hoping that, yep, we do. And you saw, I showed you the back of the case. You can see some of the images. It looks really good, at least in terms of still shots. And because the game moves at 60 frames per second, it looks just as good in motion as it does in still shots. So it shows you the game screen here. It's definitely like the behind the rider angle, and it's almost like ski slopes, where you can pick different trails to go down with different degrees of difficulty and obtain more points, which is certainly going to be important. So there's combat mode, there's a trick meter here, points obviously. Video clips can be unlocked or purchased, so you can watch some videos too. That's one of the advantages of DVD-ROM technology, is you can cram a whole bunch of stuff on there. It was no longer just about playing the game. Now you could put behind-the-scenes things, you could put music videos in there, you could put, if you're playing an extreme game, you can put like skateboarding videos, whatever additional content you want to add. As long as you haven't taken up all the room with your game, you could add some full motion video to your game, and this particular title is no exception. So when you're playing solo, you can do a single race, you can free ride without competition. There are time trials. There's a career mode, which is definitely going to be the meat of it for any solo player. Arcade, mosh bowl, so you can just race down a mountain and just beat the stuffing out of people that you're racing against. Super jump and training. I mean, there's just so much cool stuff here, and it's crazy. There's an option here where you can race against Incognito's best. Basically like getting some Ghost Riders to race against right away, which I think is pretty neat. If you choose career mode, you can race in one of the following career types. So super career, which is the big one, specialized career, and free ride, mountain cross, technical downhill, or freestyle, a custom tournament as well. So there's a lot of customization options, a lot of different ways that you can play the game. Let's see what else we have here. It is, by the way, it is very much a racing game. You're trying to get down to the bottom of the mountain first, so you have to take out opponents while you're on your way down. With that in common, it kind of is in common a little bit with ESPN Extreme Games. It's got that extreme feel to it, where it is a race. The whole idea is to end the race in first place, but you can also obtain points by completing tricks and beating the stuffing out of people on your way down. I do want to look here in the back. I always like looking at the soundtracks in these games. Keep in mind, this is from 2003. I'm a nu metal guy, so groups like Breaking Benjamin and 3 Days Grace and Chevelle, these are my kind of bands. Saliva, I guess, a little bit. Seether. And we used to start hearing from these bands back at this time. So when I'm looking at the licensed music tracks, we've got some Brian Setzer here. Propeller Heads, Freeze Pop, which is popular thanks to frequency and harmonics. Cirrus, let's see, Toby Mac, Dramatic Twins, Andy Hunter, James Brown, I Got You, Death by Stereo, Black Eyed Peas, Let's Get It Started. Of course, it's the more offensive version. Mary Mary from Run DMC is here. And there's more, if you can believe it. Kazer's here, Slipknot is here, Dragpipe is here, Cinder, the Donnas are here. Remember them? Saliva is also here with Your Disease. So a great soundtrack. I cannot wait to play this. It is downhill mountain biking. Yes. It is a racing game. Yes. It is about combat. Yes. You can pull off tricks. Yes. But the coolest part of this game is just the insane stuff that happens on your way down the mountain. One of the tracks that I remember, and I think it's the first track of the game, there's like a crazy thunderstorm that takes place where there's lightning everywhere, dropping trees and stuff. It is just insane to drive through or to race through. And that's just one thing. So when you have set pieces like that, it makes an arcade game even bigger. There was another arcade game, Hydro Thunder, in fact, that I've talked about on this particular program when we opened Midway Arcade Treasures 3, that has a bunch of set pieces where there's just crazy stuff going on, whether there's a big storm or whether you go underground and jump over a volcano or a bunch of crazy things. This game tends to take some of that energy and put it into downhill mountain biking, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's so cool. Sadly, we never saw another game like this. This was the one and done for Incog, unfortunately. If you can find it for your PS2, I do recommend it. The price on this game is starting to go up, however, so if you're thinking about grabbing it, don't wait too long. This game, as well as some other PlayStation 2 games, I've been checking on eBay. I've been trying to supplant my collection and try and grow it a little bit, and prices are starting to inch their way up a little bit. So if you're thinking about starting a PlayStation 2 collection, or you're thinking about adding this game to your collection in particular, don't wait too long. If you see this one in the wild and you see it for a decent price, like between $10 and $20, pick it up. You'll be glad you did. As always, my friends, thank you for watching this episode of Unsealed. I really do appreciate it. Until the next time, please take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll do another one of these videos really soon. Until then, take care.